Recording in progress.
Hi everyone, welcome to my second edition of the Holistic Hub. So today I have a very special guest, someone who I met back in 2017. She is a wonderful reflexologist, a Reiki master, a free mind hypnotherapist, and a Bowen therapist as well. So I'd like you to welcome the lovely Sunayana Clark.
Hello,
Hi. Nice to see you again, Sunanya.
and you, Roshni. Really lovely to see you. Thanks for having me on the video on the
Oh, that's
program.
okay. I'm so excited because all the people that have helped me with my conditions and my healing journey, I'm able to sort of like speak to them now and look back at, oh my God, look, this is how you helped me.
Hmm.
And and I'm doing the same similar kind of work as yourself. Obviously, I don't do the physical side of it, but it's the healing side of it that I do, and I can really relate to what you were doing a few years ago.
Lovely.
So I met you through your lovely sister, Priya.
You
And
did.
it was really funny because when I used to work for the government, Priya said to me one day, she said, I had this foot condition, as you know, and in 2016, and she said, do you know what? I think my sister's going to help you. And I was like, I don't know anything about your sister. She goes, well, look, here's her details. And I kept your details for a good year.
Oh,
And then
right. I didn't
yeah,
know
then I think,
that.
yeah. And then about 2017, I was like, I need to check out Sunanya. I need to really check her out. And that's when I came to you, to your beautiful hub. And I had my very first hypnotherapy, Reiki, reflexology session. And I've got to say, it was absolutely mind blowing. I remember a lot of angels coming in. I remember my mum coming in, bless her, she's passed away, and it was just a very profound experience. So not only did I love the physical side of the reflexology because it feels so good when people touch your feet, and obviously you're not just touching my feet, you're
Yeah.
healing, through the points, and to go to a holistic reflexologist is just purely a magical experience,
Mm.
you know. So I would like you now to tell the beautiful audience, how did you get into the holistic healing?
Yeah, it was not in my plan at all to do that. I had gone to university to study economics and accountancy, and I remember coming out and going to my parents, I'm never going to be an accountant. I'm just not going to do it. And I stayed in the finance area and I worked for my local council. And my boss at the time was studying reflexology. And I was fascinated. And I had this really strong feeling of if you don't study this, it's a mistake. And that's how it started. I learned reflexology through my local college. I did evening classes for 2 years and ended up with a diploma in reflexology. And while I was on that course, I began to hear about Reiki. And I was, during my reflexology course, there'd been quite a lot happening within my family. And I just remember thinking, oh, I don't think I can take on anything more. And then I just kept seeing, and this is the mid 90s when holistic therapies weren't as popular. And I kept seeing articles, like there was an article in the Sunday Times about Reiki, and I was like, that's weird. And three more times that happened, and I was like, okay, clearly someone's trying to get my attention. And so I went to one of my friends on my reflexology course and had three Reiki sessions. And like you, I had a very profound session in my second session, and I was like, oh, I need to go and learn this. So I trained, and over the space of about 3 years, I became a Usui Reiki master. And I
Wow.
began teaching Reiki. And then I had a bit of a gap. And then about 4 or 5 years later, I came across the Bowen technique through another practitioner. I was just astonished at the gentleness of the move, but the change it was creating in the physical body. But it also felt very energetic to me. And I really loved seeing how you can touch someone's back of their knee, they'd feel relief in their neck, but they'd emotionally feel lighter and mentally feel lighter. I was like, oh, even now that kind of delights me. And then the hypnotherapy came about because sometimes, I would meet people who just couldn't get out of their heads. They couldn't get beyond. And it was just a way of actually, I'd already used visualizations with them and wasn't getting the effect I wanted. And so the Freemind hypnotherapy came about from there. Um, and but what's really interesting to me with all of them is I like solving problems. So I'm not the kind of therapist you come to because you want a pamper session. I'm the person you come to when you have a serious problem you want fixed, essentially. So I use those four therapies in combination to help my clients. And between 2017 and 2022, 21, sorry, I really focused on anxiety as because I noticed in my career I'd worked with cancer patients, motor neurone disease patients, Parkinson's patients, as well as various other kind of backaches and that kind of thing. But I noticed in all conditions there was anxiety running through it. And I noticed if we resolved the anxiety, a lot of their symptoms disappeared. So this is interesting. And so that was my focus for about 5 years. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. And thanks to you, I did the introduction course to Bowen therapy this year. And I wouldn't have done it if I wouldn't have had such a good session with you. And then then I found someone a bit more local who does Bowen therapy as well. But it always stuck with me what you did. The whole holistic. Every time I used to come to you, I used to get so happy. It was a little bit further to travel for me, but
Yeah.
I used to be like, oh my God, I'm going for my session. It was so exciting. It was like going to a retreat for like 2 hours,
Well,
an hour. And,
yeah.
I just absolutely loved it. And I'm ever so grateful for
Oh,
all the healing that you gave me and taught all
you're
the
very
things that you
welcome.
taught me, because you also taught me many things about, I think you followed, I think at the time as well, you were following Esther Hicks. I think you
Yeah,
were the one that
yeah,
introduced
yeah,
Esther
yeah,
Hicks
yeah.
to me.
Abraham Hicks, yeah.
Yeah, and basically, now I'm following her a lot, and I always
Hmm.
think of you, and I thought, Sunanya told me about this ages ago.
Yeah, the reason I like Abraham Hicks, I also like Wayne Dyer, Brené Brown, a few of those speakers in that realm. Some are more esoteric than others, like
Yeah,
Abraham Hicks. But the thing about them is all of them talk about how we have the choice in how we respond to something that's happening. We all experience challenges in life. That is life, right? But we get to choose how we respond to them. Am I going to give the drama more energy, or am I going to go, okay, that was really awful. How can I feel better about my life? I may not be able to solve the awful problem, but there are other areas in my life that are working. Can I focus on those?
yeah,
And I love that idea because you're empowering people to find their own solutions.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and in my work, that's something that's really important to me. I would always tell my Reiki students, you're not a healer, you're a facilitator. As a
Yeah,
therapist, what you're offering is the route to health, or the route to relief, or the route to happiness, whatever it is you want to call it.
yeah,
And you're providing the signposts for people. So
brilliant.
it's incumbent on us to remember that, because otherwise I take on the responsibility for healing you. I
Yeah.
can't heal you.
No, no. Absolutely. We're all our own healers. And I think it's in the beginning, like I was really careful with what I was calling myself, because I said, all right, am I spiritual healer, my spiritual coach? And I thought, no, coach sounds better.
Mm-hmm,
And because you're right, we are facilitators, and people don't realize, like, we can all heal ourselves, but we're channels. That's what we
mm-hmm,
are. We're channels at the end of the day. Another word for, you know facilitators, whatever comes down,
mm-hmm,
we channel it out. And something I'm going to touch on what you said about how you respond
mm-hmm,
is so important, because I used to be a very good reactor. used to react to everything, and now I, take a step back and respond. And now I'm learning like not to have a charge with it. Yeah,
Hmm.
so not getting triggered. And all these things we're learning, and it's so nice. Sometimes it gets too much, like I was saying to you earlier. I was like, oh, when is this healing going to stop? but we're evolving, so it's really, really amazing. Really
Yeah.
good time we're in. We're really blessed to be here at this time
Oh,
doing this work.
I look at how new practitioners are advancing at a rate of knots compared to myself and people like who similar to me who started say in the 80s and 90s. Back then the energy was like treacle. It was like wading through treacle. Now the energy in comparison is fast moving.
Yeah,
Loads of people are waking up to their spirituality, their version of their spirituality. They're waking up to a desire to evolve through personal development, through learning, whatever form that might take. And what's really fascinating to me is how learning doesn't always mean doing spiritual therapies. Learning can actually be you decide you're going to start traveling, and that's how you gain your experience.
yeah.
Um, and I think it's more available to people now than it was back in the 80s and 90s, definitely. Um,
Oh, yeah.
I'm quite envious sometimes of people who become new coaches or new therapists because they're like,
I know it's so
wee,
fast.
you
I
know,
know.
yeah, yeah.
That's what
And I'm
I've done.
just like,
All
God,
that
it's
thing
so,
I went through.
yeah. And I just think, God, next year will be 30 years I've been in the holistic therapy sort of arena. And I just think, wow, okay, that's a long time to have been in that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You're like, you must, well, I know you have absolutely a wealth of knowledge, in all things
Mm.
spiritual, which is why, I think I was drawn to you, and like you go to people, whoever connects to you, they connect to you for a reason. Like, I don't believe in coincidence that, I used to work with your sister and I came to you. I don't, it's always a synchronicity,
Mhm.
always, before I go into my next question, do you want to tell everyone about your wonderful group that sometimes I dip in and out of when I'm not
Yeah.
busy? The
Yeah.
Energetics Every Day, which is on Tuesdays, because
Mm.
I really love this group. It absolutely helps me. Sometimes you get days where you do not connect to your higher self. And when I dip in, I always feel like, oh, I love coming in this group.
So, when I used to work with people, I'm just going to backtrack slightly. When I used to work with people, I would sometimes just say stuff, and people would go, "How do you know that?" And I'd be like, "I don't know. I just know stuff. And I do. I kind of just know stuff about people." And it turns out that it was my connection to my higher self, essentially. And I had been unconsciously working with my higher self. Her name's Athalia. I'd been working with her when I was doing my therapy work. And in 2019, just as the pandemic kicked in, I connected consciously to Athalia and began working with her. And as a result, I actually stopped practicing all my physical therapies and I focused instead on energetics every day. So I now teach people how to connect to their energy, their higher self, and then how they can make their lives feel better, essentially. And on a Tuesday evening in my group, I do a live. We have about half an hour on a topic. And the way I pick the topic is I feel into the energy of the group. What do they want? What do they need to know? What are their questions? I then deliver a talk and then I read cards. I'm the designer of a deck of cards
I love your
called
cards.
Thank you,
Absolutely love your
Connecting to
cards.
the Truth of You. They were designed with higher selves when I was creating them. And I read cards for people and I give them the message that they need to hear. It's not about, I don't give messages around, oh, you're going to get pregnant or you're going to meet your boyfriend. It's never about that kind of response. It's always about how can you raise your vibration? What is it that you're not seeing that you need to see to move forward with your life?
Yeah, your readings, whether they're cards or whether it's reading, they're so accurate. Because whenever I come on to your group and like I'm just feeling a bit like, oh, and then I ask you something and it's just so spot on. And it's just like, not just a little bit, it's quite a lot. And I'm like, I really needed that today.
Yeah. So I think the thing that I think is maybe people don't realize is how eager our higher selves are to help us. So I have one of my particular capabilities is that I can connect to every single person's higher self, and I can do that. Not a lot of people can communicate with a lot of higher selves. I can communicate with everyone's, right? And so because I've practiced it a lot, when I need to give you that information, I'm always asking, I want a full response. I don't want a one word answer or a one sentence answer. I want you to have actionable things to take away because, again, it's about being solution orientated and empowering people. So I want you
Yeah,
to feel good, firstly, but I want you to have something to take away to either try or think about or feel into, because that's how you grow and you
yeah,
evolve. And in that you build trust with your higher self yourself, because you're like, okay, my higher self told Sunayana, right, let me put this into action. Oh,
yeah.
okay, they were right, so that's what I love doing.
I love that because I used to get one words as well. And now when I think about it, I mean, now I think I'm going to try that hack because
Mm,
I still do get words, but stringed, but not as, because if you don't ask, you don't get. So,
yeah,
if you
we have
ask
free
more,
will, right?
yeah,
We have free will. So you can ask, get an answer, and go, well, I don't like that answer, and ignore the advice you're given, the suggestion from your higher self. Personally, I would say if you don't like the information or the answer, ask a slightly different question or ask more questions. So you might say, for example, when am I going to move house? And you might get the answer something along the lines of, well, it could be 3 years to 6 years. And you're like, well, that's not really very helpful. And that's not what I'm looking for. But maybe a better question would be, what's in the way of me moving house? Or what will speed up my
yeah,
moving house? Do you see what I mean? It's
yeah.
about learning to
Frame,
say
it's
better, ask better questions or
yeah,
follow
it's framing it right,
questions.
framing the
Yeah.
questions. Yeah,
Yeah, frame the
absolutely.
questions and don't be afraid to ask follow-up questions, and don't be afraid to sort of say, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me and I need you to be clearer, because that's their job. Their job
Yeah.
is to communicate. So
Yeah, I love that. Thank you
yeah,
for sharing that. I love that. And so tell me, what lights you up about what you do?
oh, it's the energy every single time. I mean, I just look at your golden tree, I look at my golden swoosh on my logo. When you connect with energy from a place of, I'm just going to see what's going to happen, like with real curiosity, no judgment, real curiosity. You can be astonished at what you receive. And how you receive depends. Some people know stuff, some people are visual, some people are auditory, some people have a combination of all these things. Um, but it's what you do. If you change the energy of something, the physical has to change. That is quantum physics in a nutshell.
Yeah.
uh, Please don't have any quantum physicists come after me for summarizing such a big field in such a small sentence. But in a nutshell, change the energy, the physicality has to change, right? So
Mm,
if I have a block in my way, how can I change the energy? So I've got to feel what it is now, and then I've got to go, okay, let's send divine love to that, or Reiki to that, or Rahani, or whatever it is, to that, to dissolve that block. And then let's see how the energy is flowing. I'll give you an example. My husband's now working in Slough, and he has quite a long commute. And he just said to me, oh, the motorway, particularly at this one junction, it's awful. I was like, okay, I talk about energy all the time. The least I can do
it
is,
sounds like my husband as well.
yeah. And I was like, well, the least I can do is help my husband. So I connected to the energy, and I could see at this particular junction, the energy was like a car junkyard. There had basically been so many accidents or breakdowns at this particular junction that that energy was like layering every time there was an accident. And then it was pulling in more of that energy of more accidents, more breakdowns. And so I used divine love to clear the energy. And then my husband said, well, it moves. Instead of 2 hours, he's getting to work in an hour, which is normal.
Yeah.
He said it does get congested sometimes. And I was like, well, what's causing the congestion? And he said, well, often when the exits are coming up, there seems to be some congestion. I was like, oh, okay, all right. So then again, I went back and I had a look at exits. Like, what is it about exits? And it's sort of people not paying attention. So at the last minute, they're like, oh my God, I'm at my exit, and kind of zoom off. So then it was about sort of helping people to have clarity of mind, feel ease when they're driving. So that's what I love about it, is that you
Wow.
can create this change and then you just see what happens. You're not
That's
trying to
amazing.
control outcomes.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. And it just makes our day so much easier, isn't it? With
Yeah.
ease and grace, so much easier. So, what would you say is your, like, out of all the clients that you've seen, or a particular moment that was a wow moment, that was a profound moment with your clients that you'd always remember?
Yeah, that one's a really interesting one. I think so. The first one that springs to mind was in the first half of my career, I worked a lot with cancer patients. And I was working for a charity called Cancer Kin, which is attached to the Royal Free in Hampstead. And I was giving reflexology to clients who were either in the middle of chemo, their cancer treatments, or coming to the end of it and out the other side. And I remember clients sort of talking to me about their health journey. And what struck me was that their cancer hadn't appeared out of nowhere. And that for me was a wow moment, because I was like, what else is going on then? So then I began to ask people, how was your health in the 2 years leading up to your cancer?
Mm,
And the number of people who had, you know, had colds they couldn't shake off, and then it became like a skin problem or an eczema or a digestive problem. I was like, well, that's really interesting. And I began to track that there was about an 18-month period where the body was showing you dysfunction, that there was something wrong.
yeah.
Then I began to ask the question, what happened at the beginning of the 18 months? And almost all of them had experienced some kind of trauma.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I was like, that was a real moment of wow for me. Like, this is the impact of trauma. If it's unresolved, your
Yes.
body will start showing you problems. And
Yeah.
then if you don't deal with your trauma, it will basically get worse and worse and worse. And you end up with a serious illness, not necessarily
Yeah.
cancer. I was working with
Yeah.
cancer.
Yeah.
So that was a really big wow moment for me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because I'm studying metaphysics,
Right,
and they talk about unexpected, dramatic, isolated events.
right.
And when you have one of those, and you're not kind of like dealing with it, dealing with the emotional side, it will, then later on manifest in the body. Because they say in metaphysics, like, like 90% of it is emotional. That's what they
Mm-hmm.
say. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love that.
Mm. Yeah.
Really love that.
I think the other wow moment for me was actually when I went for my second Reiki treatment, which I mentioned earlier. It because I'd never experienced an energetic treatment like that before. I'd had reflexology, I'd never experienced Reiki. And prior to experiencing Reiki, my father-in-law had died several months earlier, and this, as a stress reaction, I had been quite unwell, and I kept going to the GP. GP kept giving me medicine. It would go away and then it would come back. It was a recurring condition. After my second treatment, that problem went away and did not come back.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, this is just, I'm going to stress like this. This was weird shit. I was like, what was that? And that was the first time I was introduced to energy work and the power of it. So those are kind of two really significant moments in my
Yeah, I love that. I thank you for sharing that. And if you do you find like there's a theme going on with your clients currently? Because like for me, it was in the last few months a lot of work around forgiveness. Um, you know, but each facilitator has different experiences. What would you
Mm.
say is the theme at the moment, or in your experience?
I think the consistent theme through my career is people desiring change. They want to feel better. but they don't
Mm.
know how.
Yeah.
And they don't know how because a lot of the narrative around them is you have to work 9 to 5, you have to go to school, university, get a job, you have to do this, you have to. There's a lot of responsibility and obligation placed on people.
Programming, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it program, but I would call it responsibility and obligation. And I feel like I'd call it cultural norms where you're
Yeah.
expected to conform.
Yeah.
And I'm not an anarchist by any means, and I'm not really a rebel either in that sense. But what I'm a real advocate of is people following their happiness.
Yeah.
And so what I'm constantly offering is the opportunity to change. And I'm
Yeah.
saying I can show you how to do it, but you have to keep choosing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's all about choice. It's all about choice. I get
Yeah.
so many people sometimes who are like, I'm tired of feeling like this and I'm tired of doing this. And I was like, okay, well, I can give you all the information you want. And I can even, facilitate and channel healing. But at the end of the day, you can be a sponge and a spiritual sponge and soak up all that information, or you can actually be a doer and do something about it,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm going to brag a bit about myself in the sense that all the things I learned from yourself and all the other facilitators, I'm now, teaching others.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing something. I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
something with it, and I do believe that we sometimes go through our own crap, so that we can teach others. Yeah,
Yeah.
is that our
So I would
message?
totally agree with that. I call on, and I talk about with my clients, I talk about my journey a lot because it's really helpful for them to understand that I do know what it's like not to feel good. It's good for them to know from watching my journey that it's been a continuous journey. I started my healing journey in my mid-20s, so almost 30 years it's been going on. It's changed in how I do my healing, but essentially it's been a healing journey. I think it helps people feel less judged as well when they know that you've had your own journey and maybe are still on your journey.
Yeah,
And I think it also helps you as the practitioner to remember your journey because then you don't move into God complex
yeah,
areas. You remain a fragile human who's doing their best, right?
yeah.
And you're not
Absolutely.
like, I can fix the world because that's not
Yes.
your job either.
I love
Um,
that. I love that. That's what I tell my clients, and I tell
yeah.
I tell a lot of people because some friends and family might turn around and say, "Oh, well, you do all this healing work, then why are you going through this?" And I was like, "You have no idea."
It's because you're a physical human, right? It's
Exactly.
because it's because you're a physical human and you're experiencing physical things and you're learning. Each one is an opportunity for you to choose how you're going to react and how you're going to feel. Are you going to
Yeah.
choose to feel good? Are you going to choose to be repeat the same behaviors? Or are you going to go, actually, no, I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to put this thing to one side because I can't do much with it at the moment. It makes me too upset. I'm going to instead go and do the gardening, or I'm
Yeah.
going to go and cook, or I'm going to go and paint, or I'm going to go and hit a pillow a few times, whatever it is, right? But making a different choice and breaking that cognitive thought cycle, breaking that emotional cycle, those
Yeah.
are the ways you change and grow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And if you had a bit of advice for our audience, anything that you wanted to advise them on, what would you say? What would you advise them?
Right. One sentence is hard, Roshni. You know I like to
Yeah,
talk.
you're like me.
I would say decide to feel better
Hmm.
and keep choosing that and let the universe bring you different ways of choosing how to feel better. And I cite this example in my group quite a lot and I talk about it a lot. During the pandemic, everyone's going through their stressful times. And I just got really fed up of worrying about, my mother-in-law had to come and live with us because she had a breakdown and there was lots of stuff going on. My son was doing his GCSEs. So I began listening to Abraham Hicks's Everything is Working Out for Me. It's a 10, 15-minute short video. I listened to it for 13 months daily. And that was the single choice I made of feeling better. At the end of the 13 months, I could not only recite this thing to you, like word for word, but I felt better. And I had a belief then that even if something horrible was happening,
Yeah.
it was working out for me.
Yeah.
And it brought a real faith and trust and a stability. Whereas before, my emotions, my head would have gone, ah, my emotions have gone in the other direction. I was really, so it's that, make a decision to feel better and keep choosing that.
I love that. I really love that because I think there's definitely people out there that need to hear this, you know. So thank you so, so much for coming on here. Now, how do people get in touch with you? You've got a website or a Facebook page. I know
Yes.
you're going to send me the link, so I'll attach it to the comments
Yeah.
of the YouTube video. But
Mhm.
are you still doing physical healing or?
I'm not doing physical healing, but I do
Yeah.
do one-to-one healings online through
Okay.
Zoom.
Brilliant.
They can contact me through my website, which is Energetics Everyday with sunyana.clark.co.uk. They can join my group, which is on Facebook, Everyday Energetics with Sunyana Clark, and surprisingly. I'm on Instagram as well, and I'm also on TikTok, although not as active on TikTok.
Yeah.
And later this year, my book will be available. It's called Energetics
Amazing.
Every Day, Your
Amazing.
Way. So, um, yeah, those are the different ways they can contact me.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'm just so grateful to have met you and know you and still be part of your life and you be still
Thank
part
you.
of my journey. So thank you
Yeah,
so much.
you're
Um,
welcome.
Thank you to the audience for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and please do contact Sananya.
Yeah.
And I shall see you for the next edition. This recording will go out on Monday. So please do share, 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 share. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.